Hi, my name is Michaela Relford, and today I will be talking about Frankenstein MD as an adaptation of Frankenstein. It follows the narrative of the original work very closely, just swaps out for the original setting for a modern med student named Victorious Frankenstein studying at Angel State University. The criteria I will discuss to determine whether or not this is a good adaptation are faithfulness to the source material, self-containment, and how well it adopts its medium, and I'll talk about these in more detail. First, faithfulness to the source material. What I'm looking for is not so much a shot-for-shot recreation of the original text of Frankenstein, so much as I'm concerned with how characters and themes are preserved, as this is why Frankenstein is so interesting in the first place. Second, I would like to see if the adaptation is self-contained. I'm defining this as its ability to stand on its own. Is it entertaining? Would people like it if it wasn't associated with an already successful literary classic? Or is its success more owed to name recognition? Lastly, I would like to discuss how an adaptation adopts its medium. The interesting thing about Frankenstein MD is that it is a web series published on YouTube, and this fact alone already causes the audience to make several assumptions about the adaptation. I'll start with faithfulness to the source material. I've picked this because it does hold some level of importance. If you told me to watch a movie about Frankenstein, but the only thing that was preserved was the name of the character, I'd be pretty unimpressed. Like I said earlier, I'm not so concerned with a shot-for-shot recreation of Frankenstein so much as I am with how well characters and themes are preserved. And I'm happy to say that Frankenstein MD does a good job of recreating the characters. Starting with Victoria, who is this adaptation's version of Victor. She is just as arrogant and ambitious as her counterpart in the written novel. Clerval is her caretaker and friend, who is rather adventurous, and Eli, who serves the role of Elizabeth, is the flat love interest. The themes are also preserved and rather expanded upon as well. It discusses ethics and science, and also sort of talks about a lot of feminist themes which are amplified since we have a female Frankenstein. In this way, the themes are preserved. Second, self-containment. Would the adaptation be interesting if it wasn't supported by a literary classic? If you just use the name to describe an amalgamate humanoid, it's probably not going to be able to stand on its own. So I'll start with a negative. I'm not a huge fan of YA romance plots. They tend to be kind of redundant. It even follows this sort of trope of let's run away together, but then Eli promptly dies, so. But on the other hand, the narrative is pretty compelling. Vic's thoughts and ideas are wildly ambitious and do a really good job of driving the plot. It affects her relationship, most poignantly with Iggy, who serves the role of Igor, and this is engaging to the audience. There are moments that are dramatic, suspenseful, and there are moments where it's quite humorous, and you really start to like and side with the characters, and this is a good sign of self-containment in an adaptation. Last, I'll talk about how an adaptation adopts its mediums. Different mediums elicit different expectations from an audience, and this is something we're all familiar with. We don't expect the same things from our movies as we do from our TV shows and Netflix series. In fact, this is the biggest reason I wanted to watch Frankenstein MD, because not only is it a web series on YouTube, but it has other multimedia outshoots, like a Twitter and a blog and things like that. The main goal of the producers is clear. They want you to perceive Frankenstein MD as though the events are actually occurring in real life. This point is further driven because it's relatively interactive. There are even Q&As with some of the characters, which I'm led to believe are to some degree legitimate due to the active Twitter accounts that asked questions. How well does it operate on YouTube, though? Well, it has all of the staples. Jump cuts, an internet brand of humor, a somewhat awkward demeanor in front of the camera. Unfortunately, this is sometimes defied in order to drive the narrative. For example, why would you publish a video that has sensitive information when you have complete control over what you release and can edit out whatever you want? And why is there more than one camera angle when the viewer is led to believe that there's only one camera? I can almost forgive these sort of inconsistencies, however, just given the inherent difficulties of this medium. You're confined to a very limited setting, and your thoughts can only be derived from dialogues and tweets. I just wish it was a little more convincing. In conclusion, I thought Frankenstein MD was a great adaptation of Frankenstein. It was true to its source material, it is entertaining enough to stand on its own, and it adopts its medium sufficiently. I recommend it to anyone who's looking for a good adaptation of Frankenstein, and I think it sets a really high standard for future adaptations. Thank you.